I'm not sure what I miss the most. Flowers? Trees? Grass? Is there even any point in wondering what I miss most when I miss them all so greatly? It's been too long. Far too long since I had a chance to see what one might consider nature, to free myself of all this metal, stone, and asphalt. I'd love to see a river again. A real one. Not that pathetic replacement they have flowing through the city. It doesn't count if every bend is designed and if the banks are artificial. It doesn't matter, though, because I don't have a choice. I have a larger prison cell than most, but it's still a prison cell. Roughly 10 kilometers by 8.5. The borders of the city. The wall. I wish that I could see nature from the wall, but all that's out there is the slums, and then the ruins stretching out as far as the eye can see. Seeing as the wall expands by roughly 1/4 of a km in each direction annually, I suppose I'll eventually get to see nature from the top of the wall. I'd only have to wait another 40 years or so, give or take a decade. Please hold for security scan. That draws me out of my mind and back into the reality of my nightly walk. I stay in place as the red light washes over me. I know that it's impossible to actually feel the light on my skin, but I swear I do each time. I know it's analyzing everything I'm wearing right now, checking my shoes, my pants, my shirt, my pockets, my winter jacket, and even my glasses. The machine is determining the weight of these objects, and determining if the weight has changed significantly since my last scan. It hasn't. My last scan was just 2 blocks ago. For most people, the scanning process is random, and presumably it is for me as well, but I swear I get stopped at every possible scanner. The light turned blue, and I figured it was checking my phone to see if I had made any calls, texts, or emails since the last scan, if I'd taken any pictures, deleted programs, or done anything irregular. It was also checking my wallet. I don't know why I carry a wallet, honestly. My ID is displayed on my windbreaker, and I pay for things by swiping my wrist tattoo over a scanner. But somehow the wallet makes me feel more human. Scan complete. Have a nice day, citizen. I look both ways and then cross the street. I'm not sure why. I know that the automated cars would stop for me if I didn't check. Though I suppose it's impossible not to hear my mother yelling at me not to cross the street without checking for cars. But that was before the war, rather before Unity. It's a good thing the scanner can't read my thoughts or I'd have been fined. Yes, Unity. Such a nice word for it. A word you would hear dozens of times in any given day. Recordings reminding us what we had to be thankful for. Announcements telling us to be more grateful. Memos to instruct us how to show our appreciation. At this point, I'm confident they'd used every possible synonym to say the same thing for the past 15 years. We're in charge. You're alive. Do what we tell you and you'll be fine. Now worship us for our benevolence. I briefly wonder what's worse. The fact that they think we all buy their propaganda, or the fact that some of us actually buy it? As I ponder this, I notice movement up ahead and pause. As I hear the zap of the door charge, and then see dark figures rushing into the building, I start to walk across the street. I've got no need to get involved in a sweep and clear. Since I don't see any cops around to keep people back and the area hasn't been cordoned off, I figure it must be the Integration and Prosperity Agency. A very fancy title for their secret police. I'm about halfway across the street when I see dark figure detach from the shadows ahead of me. Shit. Human! Halt where you are! The voice is deep, yet accompanied by a slight whine. I know it must be a Bregnan even before I can see his fat head. 4 eyes arrayed in a V on his wide face. Sunken nose. Split-hinged jaw that would open to reveal 2 different sets of teeth. Their most dangerous natural attribute was their claws. Retractable and dense, they weighed an average of 8.75 kilograms. Highly effective against soft target in close range. For example, an unarmored human civilian standing in the street. "What are you doing out this late at night, human?" he barked at me. I began to sign to him that I was simply going for a walk, and that with my given profession I was normally awake at this time. But he didn't even let me get past my explanation that I was on a walk when his split jaws opened, one half tapping the other. Their version of a scowl. He stepped forward, his large hand grasping my head as he made me look at the ground. I could feel one of his fat fingers tapping the connection point on my neck. "Ah, hack job. Get out of here, human," he barked. He was already moving on, but I straightened up and signed thank you to him, or at least to his back. However, as I turn to continue on my walk, someone sprints across the street just in front of me. I hear the hissing and gurgling of the alien's native language before a drone shines a light on the figure. He's likely in his mid-20s. Bruising along his face would indicate he'd been in a fight within the last 24 hours. I'd have to examine him more closely for a more exact estimate. He had light brown hair and pale blue eyes. He was clearly scared and wearing nothing but his underwear. He looked at me for a moment, but I stood still in the street. He turned, then running for the alley on the far side as one of the drones overhead moved to follow. As I stood still, I saw the Rakanta burst from the alley the fugitive had run from. With 6 lower legs, they could sprint at speeds of 45 kph. Their chitinous exoskeleton was also useful in turning away most small blades, though their most dangerous natural attribute was their heavy barbed tail. The entire tail plus barb weighed an average of 45 kilograms. It caught up to the fugitive easily, and I could hear him scream out as the Rakanta struck, the stinger jabbing the human runner in the back as he fell heavily. The paralyzing toxin had a 33% chance of killing humans who didn't receive immediate medical attention. With my path now clear, I began to walk once more, hoping that the rest of my walk would be clear. I had a schedule to keep. Behind me, more drones began to turn their lights on as the raid was clearly wrapping up. One of their detainment vehicles rumbled around the corner ahead of me, driving down the street towards the building. No one in the area had turned their lights on, but I doubted I was the only witness to this raid. It's simply that people pretended not to notice anymore. It saved them the hassle of answering questions or being interviewed 10 times before work the next day. Ah yes, work. I'm unsure how many times this week they had told us to be happy that their computer programs were so good at finding us the most appropriate job for our talent. All that worry and fear and nervousness about getting a job in the past was gone. Weren't we thankful that they had made sure no one was unemployed? Weren't we happy that the burden of choice was removed? I sure know I am. Employment day was a big deal in high school. All those possibilities, wondering what would be chosen after you graduate. Most people were sent to factories of some kind, of course. Humans had the most efficient work-to-sleep cycle of any species. Factories filled with humans operated at a staggering 63% increase in efficiency and 38% increase in production over the next most worthy species. The unity reminded us of our special gift constantly. That's what was supposed to be our specialty. Endurance. And in truth it was. But that was not our most dangerous natural attribute. That's why I didn't truly care about the scanners I had to constantly stop for. I carried around my greatest weapon with me everywhere I went, and it only weighed an average of 1.35 kilograms. With my connection port, mine specifically weighed 1.81 kilograms. Or it did when I last checked out of work. That was the last item the scanner checked to make sure the weight hadn't increased or decreased significantly since the scanner before it. I'm not sure how they expected my brain to change weight significantly with the exception of being removed from my head, but the scanner still checked. Yes, our brains were our most dangerous natural attribute. I knew this, though they either refused to admit it or pretended not to know. This was why there were so many scanners. This was why that raid behind me had occurred. This was why 15 years after Unity we were most certainly not united. You can't weigh an idea, and ideas have the potential to be exceptionally dangerous. This was something I didn't understand during employment day. When I sat down and underwent analysis, I was ecstatic to be chosen to be a doctor. 4 years of hard work, studying, and jumping through every hoop the alien administrators had given us, and it paid off. Medical school. Of course, with my scores, I'd only be allowed to operate on other humans, but that was fine with me. The first year had gone well, and I'd earned my connection port. How happy I'd been. How proud. In the morning after the operation, the testing began. I found it difficult to speak, and later it would become actually painful to talk. I became withdrawn. Relationships no longer interested me. Social interactions in general became more difficult. The operation which gave me the connection port had come at a cost. I was one of the so-called hack jobs. Officially. It's very difficult to properly understand what has happened to me as I am stuck in my own head. I cannot step back and truly observe my behavior before and after. All I know for certain is the consequences and what my file says. I began to lose my friends. Leaving my dorm seemed like more and more of a hassle than it was worth. I had to learn sign language to properly communicate without it hurting. Some tasks that had been easy to me before now became challenging. Some things I'd learned I forgot, and struggled to learn again. With the damaged connection, I was quarantined to the city. They couldn't properly lock the system in my skull, and if I left the wall, I ran the risk of being taken by terrorists and having it ripped out of my head so they could use it for their own evil purposes. It was for my own protection, I was told. Med school took a turn. I wouldn't help patients. I wouldn't cure people. They gave me a new task. A new job, coroner. At first, this saddened me. Then I accepted it. But somewhere along the line in my 4th year, that acceptance changed. I can't even pinpoint any specific event now, but it became clear to me suddenly. The plight of the freedom fighters, who the Unity called terrorists, those who protested the lack of privacy, the lack of choice. We had that taken from us. Just like I had my own personality taken from me. What I hadn't understood before suddenly clicked. I was ashamed at first that I'd been such a happy believer in Unity and our overlords until this point. But then I simply got angry. I had been too young to understand our loss until that piece of my brain was taken. It became personal. It all fit together. I completed my education. I became a coroner for the city police. Some are true collaborators who only took the job for the benefits, the small amount of power they could wield over their fellow man. But some would have been cops no matter what. They try to help. They try. They don't rise in the ranks. They're not the ones in the positions of power that matter now. None of us are. Humans have been deemed too rebellious for authority. The Unity reminds us of this after every attack, after every strike or protest that gets ended forcefully. We either ascend as one or struggle apart. The fact that Earth has quickly become the most productive industrial planet in Unity has no bearing on this decision to keep us here. So they say. But they keep us isolated from the other ascended species. We know of them through teaching and the net, but we don't know them in the flesh. The ones we know are their attack dogs. The Bregnan, the Rakanta, the Issarin, the Givax, and of course, the Angels. They won't even tell us the real name for their species. They deify themselves as immortal beings. They demand our worship and praise. They are the ones who truly rule the Unity. We don't even know what they really look like. They always appear in crafted vessels chosen to invoke our myths of angelic beings. Perfected humans, but human they are not. Please hold for security scan. I stop where I am. My face is passive despite the anger within me. I hold on to that emotion. When I do, I feel some spark of who I used to be. The person who had friends, who laughed and joked at parties. The person who had a future that involved a family and kids and love. The person who I cannot be now. I know I can't really feel the red light washing over me, but I'm sure I feel it even so. I'm on a street corner not far from my home. I look out to my right at the statue in the center of the small park filled with fake flowers, fake trees, and fake grass. Real organic matter would require gardeners and fertilizer. That's inefficient. So fake will have to suffice, they say. But my eyes are focused on the statue. The angel stands there, pulling the humans up with him, looking as godlike as ever. We aren't far from the local Unity Tower. The light of the scanner has turned blue. I'm almost done. Tonight is going to be special. Scan complete. Have a nice day, citizen. I walk forward, away from the scanner. When I turn left up ahead down an alley, I'm only 1 block from my apartment. There are no scanners from this point to there. I stare at the statue in the center of the park. The fake flowers, the fake trees, and fake grass all taunting me. I pull my phone from my pocket then and check the time. I'm quick to press the button to dim the screen just as soon as I've seen the time. I'd timed it well. That raid had delayed me, but I'd given myself some extra time just in case something like that had happened. I tucked my cell phone away and looked back at the statue. I pondered about the nature of the angelic vessels they used here on Earth. Were they androids? Organic? For obvious reasons, I'd never had the chance to study one on my table in the morgue, and any information on the net was restricted to those with the proper security clearance. The thing about being a hack job is they can't properly lock your connection port. You don't have an ID in the net. They say you do, and I pretend to think that, and always enter my information and official logs like a good collaborator. But I know it's not really the case. They aren't worried about me leaving the city and being kidnapped by human terrorists who would rip the connection port from my head. They're worried I might become a terrorist, that I might use my connection to fight them out in the wastes and the ruins. But they think small. They don't think like us. They think they're safe in the city network. All the various systems have locks and authorizations codes that only the right people can get. Certainly not some hack job. Without a lock, I'll never be granted any security clearance. Just access to the medical network. What none of them seem to realize is that their automated defense systems are also connected to the medical network. Their AI uses it to determine weak points in organics, and also how to use appropriate lethal or non-lethal force. I glanced around the edge of the park once more. At this hour in the morning, I was out here alone. I'd come too far to become careless, so I walked into an alley between 2 of the habitation buildings near the park. It's just 1 block from here to my apartment, and there are no scanners. The tower lights up. I smile. I hear the alarms and sirens. I see the automated turrets rise out of their covers. At the base of the tower, I see movement in the far distance. Guards in a panic, I'm sure. Inside, I'm sure their targeting systems are suddenly telling them a threat is approaching the tower. My smile grows. The spotlights from the tower focus on the statue. Then it opens fire. I watch as the statue is blasted apart by the guns, both kinetic and energy-based. Soon there's nothing left but rubble. Lights all around the park are starting to turn on. The sounds of fire echo out around the city as other towers fire upon statues that the AI is now declaring a hostile species. But then there is a distinct explosion, the final threatening species I'd added to the targeting list. The central power transformer had somehow become a raving, bloodthirsty monster. It's a good thing the AI killed it while it had the chance. The lights go out as the city suddenly becomes dark. For some reason I expected to hear a loud click or something. Instead there is silence. I turn and walk through the now incredibly dark alley to the fire escape of my building. I'd left the ladder down. As I begin to climb the stairs, I look up and pause as I realize what I'd missed most. It wasn't the flowers or trees or grass. It was the stars. I'd forgotten how long it had been since I'd seen them. The lights of the city had kept them hidden from me. But there it was, the Milky Way in all its glorious splendor. Now the sirens begin as backup power in the towers turns on. The people in the buildings all around me are likely freaking out trying to find out what happened. But as I open my window and slip into my apartment, I start to get undressed. I pick up the earplugs where I left them and glance out the window to see the first signs of dawn in the distance. The city is waking up early today, but I'm going to sleep. I put the earplugs in and climb into bed. I'm going to sleep very well this morning.